We started the Gapminder Foundation together with my son and his wife. And what we are doing is trying to make global trends understandable for as many persons as possible by transforming them. Actually, we are not interested in numbers. I think numbers are boring. I'm interested in the lives of people behind the number. That's what it is. Just using number to understand people and reality. And what we can do when we are an independent foundation is that we can divide the world as we see fit. We don't have to follow diplomatic rules. So we have decided to simplify it and only have 4 regions in the world. And we decided that Australia belongs to Asia. They have to get used to it, you know. And we decided that Turkey must be a part of Europe together with Russia, otherwise Europe becomes too small, and it can't form a part. So imagining that these are the 4 parts of the world like this. And we are in the world today, we are 7 billion people. To be precise, by this year, probably 7.3, 7.35 something. But I make it simple, down to the full billions. Where do they live? 1 billion in America, 1 in Europe, 1 in Africa, and 4 in Asia. That you have to get right. Remember, PIN code 1114. Surprisingly often, you know, these basic intermediate level you don't get right. Even if you have lots of detailed knowledge and you know many things, you know, often you miss how the whole picture change. So let me show you one example on how enormously the world has changed. And what could I show less than the Netherlands and Indonesia? The bubbles here represent the countries. It's 1966. Here, babies born per woman. In the Netherlands at that time, a little more than 2.5 babies per woman. In Indonesia, 5.5 to 6 babies born per woman. And on this axis, child mortality, the number of children dying before the age of 5, the most common indicator we have. In the Netherlands, already then, quite low. And sky high here in Indonesia, 200, 1 in 5 children dying. How far have Indonesia come? Have they come half the way? I picked 1966 because it was the first time I came to Amsterdam. I came hitchhiking from Sweden all the way down. And I remember visiting all these great institutions here in Amsterdam. So to me, this is reality. This is during my lifetime. My adult lifetime, how has it changed? I start the world, I start these countries, and look how Indonesia is doing. They are getting on with their vaccinations, they are providing family planning, education is improving, they are getting closer, they are halfway in the 1980s, but they continue forward, and the Netherlands move around down here like this, and here Indonesia is coming. Now child mortality is getting down with even better. That was the financial crisis, but they go on after that, and today, that's where they are. They covered almost the entire distance. And yet, that hasn't entered into the perspectives we have, into the worldview. When it comes to babies born per woman, they are a little like the Netherlands 1972 or 71. And child mortality is still a little high because there's such inequity. There are these remote parts of Indonesia that still have high child mortality. But this is the enormous change. And we are not really aware of that. This morning I lectured to a number of NGOs here, and I used the questions we have developed in the Gapminder School project that is very, very actively sponsored by the IKEA Foundation, where we try to have teaching material and check what they know. And we ask questions like this: out of 10 children in the world, basic things, how many get vaccinated against measles, the most important measles vaccine, out of 10? Well, this is what the answer I got this morning. No precise idea from a group of young people here in the Netherlands, but it's quite interesting because the right answer is this. 8 out of, actually 85% get vaccinated. We asked, out of 10 girls, 7 to 13-year-old, how many go to primary school? Primary school being the first 4 to 6 years in this. This is the answer we got here this morning, and this is the right, sorry. That was the answer we got, and the right answer is this one, 9 out of 10. An enormous discrepancy. This was 40 years ago. This was like 25 years ago. The whole progress that has happened in the world has not entered into the general knowledge. We asked, how many out of 10 people have electricity at home? This is the answer we got, and this is the true answer. There's nothing special with this morning in the Netherlands. We see the same throughout West Europe and North America. We see it. If anyone is better, is younger children. Younger children, 10 to 12 to 13 years old. They are not like older people and professionals. We get this. And then I ask, how many children are there in the world? When I was born, there were less than 1 billion children, this being 0 to 15 years old. And then the number of children increased like this throughout my lifetime. Turn of century, 2 billion. One of these dotted lines is the estimate by the world foremost experts at UN Population Division, the finest demographers we have. The other two I made up. They're just fantasies, as projections. And the answer, when I put this question, the answer I get in Sweden is this, and in Norway is this. I won't even mention UK and US there. Let me just show what we got this morning. It's interesting because this is the right answer. The number of children in the world have stopped increasing. And the percentages here, you have to think a little what it means. I went to the zoo in Stockholm and asked the chimps. I gave them 3 alternatives, and 33% got it right. So what does it mean answering worse than chimps? It means preconceived ideas are so strong so you can't even reach the level of guessing. This is what the reality we have about the worldview. So it's quite strange that we haven't catched up with the world in a better way. Here I can show you, if I move back with this one, you know, the biggest change of our time, I call this. The biggest change of our time that sort of summarizes this. I think it's babies born per woman. It's not the driver of change, it's not the aim of change, but it's the big intermediate that transforms society, in which you get as many kids as you can get, and some of them die and they start working early, to the modern situation where you choose when and how many children to have, and you invest heavily in the children. You know, it was 6 back in history, and when I was a student, when I came hitchhiking, it was still 5. And this number, mind you, we have good data. Counting children is not so complicated. You come with the census team, you knock the door opens in the house, and you count the children when they come out looking. It's not like trying to measure income, you know, and who has died and so on. We have solid data, and we know that this has happened. This is exactly what has happened. Average in the world is 2.5, a little below 2.5, and this is enough for the number of children stop increasing. And we know that this will happen. If I divide it into the different groups, Europe started early, America followed, had the baby boom, and then Asia was high, some called it population explosion, and then it came down like this. And then Africa, is anything changing in Africa? Many ask that question. Yes, it is, and we know that it will continue more or less like this. We don't know exactly what level we will be on, but these changes are strong but slow and gradual. So how can we understand this? Well, if I use my bubble graph in this way, each bubble is a country, size is population. Position, once more, depends on babies per woman. Here, large families, small families. Here, child mortality, low child mortality, high child mortality. In 1965, the developed countries were here. That's Japan, this is Europe, America, United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, very few in between. And then the developing world, as it was called, developing countries, more than 5 children per woman, and high or very high child mortality. At that time, when I was a young student, the world was divided into 2 types of countries. It was a dichotomy. It was intellectually appropriate to talk about this and that part of the world, and to give them 2 different names. This is the world as we knew it then, 50 years ago. And if I would show how it's changed, I have to swap to this one here and give you a full view like this. Here I can start the world. See, very few in between here. Now what has happened? I started, China is going a little back and forwards, and then Mao Zedong here gives access to family planning, and China moves over here very fast. But Brazil also and Mexico don't care about the Vatican. They also move this way. They use contraceptives. Indonesia, this is Indonesia coming down. India is coming in. And look at Bangladesh, the amazing catch-up with Bangladesh. Islamic Republic of Iran is moving here with this speed, you know. And now, after the turn of the century, you can see African countries coming here. This is Ethiopia. This is Ethiopia moving fast down like this. And here you can see, oh, that was Haiti, the earthquake, you know. And then the rest moved down like this. A completely new world. A completely new world. Majority are down here. Can you see that the majority is here now and a minor part is lagging behind? This is not the worldview. That's why the young people here this morning got it wrong. 8 out of 10 in the world get the kids vaccinated. 9 out of 10 gets girls to school, at least primary school. 8 out of 10 have electricity and 8 out of 10 use contraceptives. This world. And then we have some lagging behind. And of course, within countries, it would divide if we would split these bubbles. But this is more or less where we are today. And mind you, if I go here and show you this, the box for developing countries is almost empty today. And the definition for developing country when the two terms were introduced in the 1960s was having more than 5 children per woman. Now, we continue to use the term without having any definitions. So for all of you wanting to be sharp, think about that next time you say developing world, that you don't have a definition. Well, you can use who are eligible to aid and use the DAC criteria, but that's really something else. And this box is full. Most of the countries are down here. Now, how has this come about? How has this come about, and what will it mean? That's what I'm trying to talk with you now. I said that the number of children will not increase, but you still know that the world population will increase. Actually, we are projected to go from present 7 billion to about 11 billion. So this will happen. Look, the number of children will not increase, but the number of adults will keep increasing. How is that possible? Someone asked me, from where will they come? Will they come from outer space? Normally we know that people arrive to this world by being born as children. How can the number of adults increase when the number of children is no longer increases? There are some basic facts that you just have to learn. I'll explain to you. Look at this. Each little doll here, each little icon here represent 100 million people. This is Europe, up to 15 years of age, 30 to 45, 45 to 60, and 60 and above. So I belong to this group. I'm European, and I'm above 60. America, almost the same. They lack 100 million retired people in South America. They will soon fill up. Africa, already today, have more children than the entire Americas and Europe together. But few people in the older age group. Not so much because they've died, because they were never born. There were much less people being born in Africa 60 to 80 years ago. Asia, you remember they were down at 2 children per woman in Asia. There, they stopped increasing down here, but they still lack a lot of people up here. But China is not aging because they are living longer. They already have 75 years life expectancy in China. They will age because the adults now will grow up to an older age, replacing smaller groups of people. So let me explain to you what happens. Being in a health institution, it's very clear what happens to old people like me. You're aware? They die. So the old people up there, they will die. The rest, they will grow older, and then children come. And look, in 15 years from now, we have 100 million more in Africa, exactly the same number as the number of children will decrease in Asia when Asia dives down with lower fertility rate. So that's why the number of children in the world is not increasing, is because the number of children in Asia decrease in almost the same rate as they increase in Africa. Then they all die, the rest grow older, and the children come. They all die, the rest grow older, and the children come. They all die, the rest grow older, and the children come. And 2085, we have had this amazing fill-up of adults. An inevitable fill-up of adults. I'm shocked when I hear environmental activists saying that we have to stop population growth. We have to stop at 8 billion. There's no way you can do that. Well, there is some ugly, awful well that I don't even want to mention, you know. But it's just ignorance. There's no way we can do that. We will be 10 to 11 billion in this world. That's why the Sustainable Development Goals are wise and care. We have to solve it. And it's a bigger challenge than many imagine that has to be solved. Because we will be these people. Will we be older also? Yeah, a little longer life. I have filed an application to belong to that group. Because then I will be older and I will be able, to follow the statistic for 15 more years, But basically, it's here that things happen. Africa and Asia, we don't know really how many Africans there will be. In Asia keeps decreasing. If we get more gender equity in Asia, women start marrying earlier again in successful Asia and have more children, that may change. But more or less we will be like this. So we know what will happen to 2050. No more in Europe, no more in America, but 1 billion more in Asia. With that, Asia will stop the fast population growth. May hover around somewhere there at 5 billion. Africa in the next 35 years will double, 1 billion more. Up to the end of the century, the projection from the United Nations is no more in America, no more in Europe, no more in Asia, but 1 or probably 2 billion more in Africa. By this, the world population can level out. The message is clear for Europe, isn't it? 1 billion in Europe, a little less. Actually, Europe is shrinking. Look at the last 10 years, the immigration to Europe must double to keep the population at the same level. Now you understand why I included Turkey, don't you? Because otherwise Europe really becomes small. So Europe facing 4 billion Africa, the message is clear. Start being polite to Africans already today. Completely new attitude is needed. I hear it from business, I hear it from finance. Investment is going on, is taking off in Africa. Amazing things in happening. I see people nodding here who are experienced on this, Amazing things are happening. Nigeria, yes, having a problem up in the northeast. But on the other hand, good economic development. The oil price will be tough for them, but the democratic development is impressive. This is the world we have. We hear this negative, this won't happen. I can even see some of you being doubtful. 3 to 4 billion Africans, never. That's exactly what I heard when I was in school about Asia. 1.3 billion in India, never. They are Muslims and Hindu fatalistic people. They can never manage it. Today they're doing better than ever, having their problems, but better than ever. And China, it's amazing what they have done. Of course, it meets with environmental challenges, but this is what we could expect. If I divide North America and South and West and East Europe, I'd get what I started to call the Old West. The Americans call us here the Old Europe, but I think they are qualifying now to become old also. So I call everything the Old West. That will in the future be less than 10% of the world population. 80% or more than 80% of the world population will be living in Africa and Asia. The center of global trade will be the Indian Ocean. That's why they are quarrel about these islands here, which you think is peripheral. They're not at all peripheral. They are in the center of world sea trade in the future. Netherlands will not be in the center of the world any longer. It will be Indonesia that have a fantastic position. This is really a big world changer. And look at this, how it has come about. If I would show you money now also, I would choose to show you child mortality together with income. $300, $3,000, $30,000. Purchasing power, inflation adjusted. Netherlands, 1890. 1 in 4 children died before reaching school age. But relatively rich, 6,000. And then this happened. First World War affected the Netherlands, and even more the tragedies of the Second World War. And then Netherlands came down, and all the rest of the world came like this, and there we are today. You can see the trajectory of the Netherlands like this. This is, of course, 1945. And here is the world today. Now, how come that countries like Nepal, like Bangladesh, like like Tanzania and Ethiopia are at this relatively low child mortality in spite of being at such lower economic level. Let's go backwards a little. Let's go backwards a little and look here. And this is as good as economists can do, you know. They're coming down like this. Can you see? There, in modern time, the child mortality in Ethiopia have come down at about $800 per person in purchasing power. The same thing happened in the Netherlands at 8,000. Innovation. Innovation. We have vaccine. We have cheaper ways of providing piped water. We have cheaper industrially produced soap. We have knowledges. There's an enormous change today. We can produce 10 times as much health for the same amount of money due to innovations. I think to me this is the strongest argument for investing in innovation for development. It has already happened and it can continue to happen. And indeed need to continue to happen. Because if I look at these countries that lag behind now, they've done relatively well in health, but my favorite indicator here, number of babies born per woman, I show as color. Can you see countries here like Congo have 5.7 children per woman, whereas India has 2.4 and China has 1.6. Almost all countries over here, you know, they have very low fertility rate. The countries with high child mortality, low income, they also have many children per woman. They are before the modern transformation. And I can change this also and let the size of the bubbles show the number of child deaths. Let me show you this here. There you are. Now the size of the bubbles show the number of children dying. And almost the whole problem with high child death, many children born and low income is here. I changed this axis, by the way, to be exchange rate dollars. GNI per capita atlas method, which the World Bank used to develop, to cut off their different income groups. I like these 4 income groups. Low income countries, 1 billion people. Lower middle, 2.5 billion. Upper middle, 2.5. And high income countries, 1 billion. Very few children dying here. Very few children dying here also. Of course, China's bubble is big because the country is huge. And there's all these newborn deaths that still exist. But the real development problem is here. The development challenge is here. And the discussion of developing countries using this cutoff, I don't think it's very intelligent. Sorry, that was a blunt way of putting it. But to make a group of countries, which you classify by their economic level, and you let the group contain countries with 25-fold difference in GNI per capita. And then you discuss for policy and application there. That doesn't work. And within the group, countries, there are also such big variation. So when we talk about innovation, it has to be context-specific. As we heard about the evaluation that this institute is doing, to understand the context in which you are doing things. Finally, I would like to show you how the child mortality are in these groups. You can see that it's the poorest places where we have problem. How do we then distribute development aid? Strangely enough, the other way around. This is an ODI report. It shows that per person in extreme poverty, the low-income countries get the lowest amount of aid per person. And then there's this idea that, oh, there's poor even in middle-income countries. So development aid proportionally is overinvested in upper middle-income countries and even in lower middle-income countries here, instead of low and the lowest income countries here. We have a challenge of really facing the extreme poverty, and that's especially difficult with innovation to achieve that. The income distribution of the world, I can show here. In the Gapminder School project, we have developed this tool, which is actually softly launched already on the net. And I can have, I have to print, expand, here we can see. This is the income distribution of the world population. $1 a day, $10 a day, $100 a day. The European countries, the American, the African, and the Asian countries. No longer 2 groups of countries. A big middle. The income medium in the world is somewhere $5, $6 per person. And then there are those who are poorer and those who are richer. Of course, I have a logarithmic scale here. I press these incomes together. But if I go back and show you how this looked like, I can take it back to the 1960s, 1970s. Then there were two humps. One hump here, mainly Asia and Africa, and they were below extreme poverty. This is extreme poverty. There were 50% in extreme poverty. And then this hump with Europe and America. North America, West Europe that way, South America, and East Europe that way. You know? And this world, I call it the camel world, with two humps. It has changed. As year goes by and China and Asia start their tiger economy and African lion economy follows, it has merged. We don't have it. We have the big middle. Remember when I showed countries or I show individual households, the pattern is the same, a big middle. And from there on, they get the kids vaccinated, they have the girls in school, they use contraceptives, they have electricity at home. But we still have almost 1 billion in extreme poverty. The rate has come down. Sometimes we are really optimistic. We say just 10%. But mind you, the number in extreme poverty today is the same as in 1800. When 85% of the world population were there. Of course, it was 2 billion in 1970. It's coming down even in numbers, but it will be very tough to do the last things. And look at the income distribution in countries. This is Indonesia. If I go back here, you can see this is the income distribution of Indonesia, and this is of the Netherlands. This is the income distribution of the United States, and this is the income distribution of China. The lower part of the income distribution in the United States and of the Netherlands haven't improved their real income in the last 30 years. That's where Donald Trump and others can recruit voters. This is a very special thing. And there is an overlap of these countries, you know, now becoming richer. It's a new world which is difficult to grasp. Now, the end of this is how to end extreme poverty. We will talk about agriculture. This is what this is about, having enough food for the day. Getting out of extreme poverty is girls not carrying water, but a woman being an entrepreneur, having the water in her wheelbarrow until piped water is available. You know, changing the family pattern from 5 children per woman, 1 dying, and 2 children per woman. And then getting away from extreme poverty. School rights, health, contraceptives, cell phones and credits, and into a future of market and jobs. And this woman has the same dream as everyone else. She wants tap water, toilet, and electricity. And extreme poverty is to be found in the remote parts of the districts in the poorest countries. This is the city center. These are the health centers you have. The poor people, they live there, 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 and there. I leave you with this as the big challenge. It's very difficult to reach the last people in extreme poverty, and that is goal 1.1 in sustainable development. Eliminate extreme poverty in the next 15 years. Thank you very much.